Welcome to the Car Guys, and this week, this Mazda MX-5, a Gen 1 original shape, and in my opinion, the most pure, and the one that started the bloodline that saw the MX-5 become the best-selling two-seater sports car of all time. In this episode, I will be salivating over this 1990 early UK low-mileage mint example, talking about the history, its design, quirky features, influences, and the many Gen 1 special editions. And of course, importantly, what it's like to drive today. So if that sounds like your special kind of 60s British sports car inspired but made into a reliable, fun Japanese roadster vodka, let's get on with it. This is the Mazda MX-5 in classic red and just 38,000 miles. It's an early UK car and it's completely unmolested or modified. And you see, it even still has the original Mazda sticker on the front bumper. The interior is as near as makes no difference showroom fresh, and the hood sharp, the plastic rear screen clear, and the wheels have never been refurbished and have never felt the violent embrace of a pothole. This plucky little red rocket is a true time warp car that has materialised magically into the 21st century and is ready to be enjoyed on the kind of lingering sunny days that only global warming can guarantee. The MX-5 was first unveiled at the Chicago Auto Show on the 9th of February 1989, making it, wait for it, 35 years old. And I'm sure you agree it doesn't look half bad for a car that was designed when the Berlin Wall was still standing. It was of course inspired by 60s British sports cars like the Lotus Elan, with little touches like pop-up headlights and chrome door handles. The MX-5 name comes from Mazda Experiment Project No. 5, and it was known as the Miata in the USA and the Unos Roadster in Japan. The first MX-5 went on sale in the UK in March 1990, which makes this one of the early cars. And its price at the time? Go on, have a guess. Well, it was just over £14,000, and that price point was one of its key factors for its success. Over its 3+ decades, the MX-5 has been revised 4 times, with the second arriving in 1997, the third in 2005, and the current model in 2015. MX-5s are consummate roof-down road cars, fun runabouts, and have even become track day favourites, with our very own tamed racing driver Josh Malin campaigning one in his early career. Like the Porsche 911, the MX-5 has been tremendously successful in a largely unchanged formula, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And of course, because it's Japanese, MX-5s don't break. And even if they did, they are easy to maintain with simple home tools. Another reason for the car's popularity with drivers and racers. Now, confession time, I almost bought a car just like this in the mid-90s from Magna Mazda in Canford Cliffs. I also highlighted it as a contender for our Best Cars for £10,000 episode, and I have to say, I've got quite a soft spot for these Gen 1 MX-5s. I've always wanted to own one. I appreciate its simplicity, its manual roof, its low-powered but gutsy 1.6 litre engine, that tuned exhaust note, nimble handling, and the fact that it's just so damned pretty and tiny.
I look quite pretty.
In our messed up world, chocked full of gargantuan SUVs, bendy buses and monstrous electric conveyances, the MX-5 is a joyous reminder that we used to have fun and we didn't take ourselves quite so seriously. I mean, just look at the MX-5 commercials from the time. Sunny days, carefree motoring, smiling drivers.
It just feels right.
Where did it all go so wrong? These days, if we're not being ripped off by money-making congestion charges, exorbitant car taxes, or being spat at by entitled, newly emboldened cyclists, we're in fear of losing our licence due to cynically placed speed cameras and demonised for even getting the car out of the garage. Motoring in the 2020s sucks, and so it is an absolute pleasure that we can still enjoy a slice of the good times with the Mazda MX-5. Here it is then, and what a petite, cute, inoffensive little convertible it is. This one, as you can see, is in classic red, one of the launch colours. You could initially get it in 5 exterior shades: classic red, crystal white, silverstone metallic, brilliant black, and my favourite, mariner blue. It's got a steel body, but the bonnet or hood is made from aluminium. It features all-round independent suspension, rack and pinion steering, disc brakes all-round with ventilated ones at the front. These 7-spoke cast aluminium wheels are original, by the way. First thing you notice, it's very, very small, tiny in fact on modern roads, and that's part of its charm. You can nip in and out of spaces, you can get into parking spaces that other cars couldn't even dream of, and of course out on the open road, thanks to its light 955 kilograms, it's pretty nippy on the overtake. The whole smooth profile of the car is really what stands out. It's just so pretty.
I look quite pretty.
And easy and elegant. And if you look at it next to a 60s Lotus Elan, which you probably are right now, you can see the similarities. You can see how the Japanese were influenced by those 50s and 60s cars. The proportion, the smoothness, the unfussy lines. Look. Chrome door handles, what a lovely little thought. Think of the tooling required just for that. There's nothing else like that in the Mazda range at the time. It's got a fixed aerial, that's not electric, so if you want the aerial to go down, you have to unscrew it. There is no internal boot release, so you have to actually take the ignition key out, put the key in it to open the boot. The rear lights, again, cute, simple, rounded, everything is integrated, neat, unfussy, nice little MX-5, just in chrome on the back. You've got these metal attachments here for the tonneau cover, which you get with the car. This one's got it as well. Little tiny mirrors, which are perfectly usable, but not ungainly. You've got the merest hint of mud flaps coming out here. This is the only real external adornment to the body shape, the only concession that the designers had. And of course, these Gen 1 models have quite the most darling pop-up headlights you were ever likely to see. Just when you thought the MX-5 couldn't look more like a happy little puppy, up pop its happy little ears. In later cars, those headlights became big bulbous items and it really started ruining the shape of the car. Also, later cars got more bulges, got more sweeps, which again took away from the simple purity of this shape. The design of the MX-5 was based on Mazda's philosophy of Jinba Itai, which translates as one rider, one body. The close connection between a horse and its rider and a driver and the sports car. In the case of the MX-5, that means a compact light body, perfect 50-50 weight distribution, a low driving position, and tactile controls and steering. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the tyres are 14 inches. 14. Imagine trying to get away with that now. In Japan and America, you had the option of a limited slip differential along with the manual gearbox, and there was also the option of a removable hardtop for winter conditions. Power steering? No, too heavy. The MX-5's simple manual canvas roof was made by Calico, and the soft plastic window that you have to unzip when you're dropping the roof was made by Gurit Warbler of Switzerland, who also supplied Porsche and BMW. But overall, this design is as successful now as it ever was. You see one on the road today and it makes you smile, and that is the key to the success of the MX-5. It's pretty.
I look quite pretty.
It's usable, it's reliable, but it's just so much fun. Under this aluminium weight-saving bonnet or hood, we have the MX-5's plucky little power plant. A 1597cc 4-cylinder double overhead cam engine that generates 114 brake horsepower, 116 PS, and originally came from the Mazda 323, but heavily modified enough to give it a different designation, the B6. Z3. This is good enough to propel the car's featherweight 955 kilograms to 60 in 8.7 seconds and on to a top speed of 121 miles an hour. Peak torque, well, that's 100 foot-pounds, which is 136 newton meters. The exhaust system was tuned specifically by Makoto Shinhama to replicate the noise of British sports cars from the 50s and 60s. Things like the Sprite, the MGA, the Austin Healey, and the TR3. And as you can see, it's got a stainless steel tip and it's composed of multiple roughly equal lengths of steel tubes. The gearbox is a modified RX-7 unit linked to the now famous short throw stubby gear stick. And yes, I know what you're thinking, 114 brake horsepower, Damian, that's pathetic. And yes, you're right, in today's world of 1,000 brake horsepower electric hypercars, 600 brake horsepower SUVs, it does seem pretty puny. But remember, the formula for the MX-5 is crucially Low weight plus sufficient power over handling equals fun. And if you compare the 2024 MX-5 to this 1990 original, the results are surprising, because actually they're pretty similar, which just goes to show that A, Mazda knows its audience, B, has stuck to the formula, and C, given that over 1.3 million have been sold, it's working pretty well so far. Here we are then inside the MX-5, and as you can imagine, it's a lovely little tight, neat place to be. There's hardly any adornments, there's no fussiness, it's all very functional indeed, which I love. First thing you notice, obviously, because it's an early car, no airbag. It is a simple, thin, beautiful to hold leather steering wheel, which has got gaps in it large enough to see those chrome ringed dials. Dials wise, we've got fuel on the left, rev counter, oil pressure, speedo, and of course the engine temperature. To my right, we've got that little fog light that you can control there, and also the lightness of the interior display. To my left knee, I've got a cigarette lighter right here, easily to hand. You access the bonnet by pulling a lever down here on the right. The stalks are made out of that kind of plastic which feels like it's old Bakelite, but isn't, and they have a lovely clicky feel about them. They're really nice to use, they never break. On the left you've got windscreen wipers, on the right you've got lights and indicators. Tweak the end of this one on the right and the pop-up headlights come up. One of the great automotive sensations. In the center console here, we've got some ventilation, hazard warning lights, a button here which puts the headlights up, and you've also got the heating controls here with the fan, direction and heat. We've got a non-standard Blaupunkt stereo on this car, a lovely little cubby hole for some knickknacks, or maybe your phone if you've got a very small phone, or perhaps some mints. Transmission tunnel here, because of course it's a rear-wheel drive car but front engine, so you need to get the drive to the rear wheels. Proper manual handbrake, obviously. A small hatch, which is your ashtray, lovely. Just here next to my hands you've got the electric window controls. I kind of prefer if it was manual windows in this car. Electric sort of goes a bit against the basic ethos, so I think they probably could have done with having a base model just wind up windows. Behind the windows controls you've got a cubby hole here to put some items in, but also crucially that's where the lever is for the fuel filler cap. But of course the main event in any MX-5 is the short throw, stubby little manual gearbox. And of course, this is the stuff of legends. People talk about rifle bolt feels and snicky here, so I'm very looking forward to using this in anger in just a few minutes. But certainly it falls naturally to hand, and it shows me that we've got 5 gears and a reverse. The seats in this car are cloth, nice and simple. You don't need leather at all, and certainly on sunny days if you leave the top down, it's nice to have cloth so that you don't remove 6 layers of skin on the hot leather when you get back into the car. You also have a bit of a parcel shelf here behind which you could put luggage on, I guess. The roof feels exceptionally sturdy and well put together, and you've also got 2 little interior lights just down here which are quite cute. There of course isn't one here because how would you get the wiring to the convertible roof? So the interior lights are down here near your knees. But overall the feeling in here is of simplicity and simple functionality. That's enough about this. Let's get the roof down, let's go for a drive. Okay, so we talked about the interior, but let's take the roof off, show you just how easy it is in this first generation car. Now the first thing you have to do before you actually put the roof back is you have to unzip the rear screen, because otherwise it can bend and crack and just ruin it. So fortunately there is a prominent zip over here, and we just pull that back there. Oh, there you go. The rear screen falls back. So you've got 2 clips here which are easily to hand because the car is obviously so small. You put forward the sun visors to get good access. There's a little unlock button here which you push, and then you pull back the lever on both sides. Just like that. You get a beautiful, precise mechanical click because of course it's been really thought about. And then you put your hand inside the little handhold here, you just pull it back. And hey presto, the roof is gone. Look how simple that is. You don't have to wait for an electric motor. You don't have to wait that 14 seconds like you do with Ferraris. You don't have to worry that it's going to break. It just works, and it works every time. And it works, as we can see here, 34 years later. And now we're ready to enjoy the full MX-5 experience. little engine. Straight away, it's a lovely free revving little thing. Loving that. God, it really does feel tiny on these roads. Everything else around me looks enormous. It feels enormous. The gearbox, of course, is a delight. It's just so small and stubby, and it just goes in with such directness. It's really satisfying. You pull it back, it's straight in there. You can see why all the plaudits love this gearbox. You sit quite low in the car, but there's actually quite a lot of body roll. And I know that's something, yeah, you see what I mean? Oh yeah. That's something that was fixed in the later generations, but I think it was dialed in for this car in order to give it more interesting handling. As you went around the corners, you properly felt the bends, and then you could compose it. You could almost unsettle the MX-5 on its rear and then ride itself through the corners, perhaps a bit of sideways action. But yeah, the way that this car is damped, the handling is good. It's soft in the corners. It's a little bit too soft actually. Fortunately, we've got a sunny day, which is exceptionally rare in the UK at the moment, but I've managed to find one for you. And as you can see, we are driving through the British countryside. I've got majestic oaks either side of me. The road is relatively clear. I'm in a bright red MX-5 and life just feels wonderful, doesn't it? The full-off open-top MX-5 experience is all about not hair-raising speeds. You're not supposed to be flying along. You're meant to be enjoying the sensations, the sights, the smells, just enjoying everything around you. This is a great car for little Sunday jaunts, little road trips. This is perfect. It's not got enough power to get you in trouble, but it's got enough power and enough lightness to allow you to do some overtakes and to progress pretty swiftly actually. You can't beat the open top experience, and what I know is I can wring the neck of this car and I'll still keep my license, and nothing really gets in the way of driving. It is a simple, pure driving machine. As the adverts say, it just feels right.
It just feels right.
The rear mirror is enormous, the wing mirrors work brilliantly, so visibility is fantastic, and obviously if I flick the lights forward, I've got the pop-ups, and that is glorious. It is glorious to have the pop-ups on here. They're just so cool. Steering is weighted. It gives you a lot of confidence. It's quite a large steering wheel, and obviously you combine that with the body roll, and yeah, things get a little bit fairground a bit too quickly. Think it's time for some beans? I think so. Drop it down to second. Here we go. 2,500 revs. Are you ready? Foot down. Revs, revs, revs. Oh yeah, look at that pitch in the corner. You can feel that, can't you? Here we go. We'll go for an overtake, shall we? Yeah, it's a nice pleasing 4-cylinder thrum that you get from the engine, but it's plenty rapid, and it's rapid crucially because it doesn't really weigh anything. You're not going ballistic speeds when you're doing the beans in this thing. Oh yeah, you blip the throttle, immediate gear change. It's lovely. Look at that, down to third. Oh, I don't get a rasp from the exhaust, but I do get quite a nice throaty thrum. And here we go, ready? Hear that? Change up at just over 6,000 RPM. This car feels like it just came out of the showroom in 1990. It's an incredibly well-preserved example. On a day like this, the MX-5 just works. It reminds me how pure and unadorned and beautiful these Gen 1 cars are. It's just about enjoying life. This is the perfect, and I mean perfect, summer car. So what do I like about this MX-5? Well, I love the design, I love the simplicity, I love the pop-up headlights, I like how utterly cute it is and how drivable, and the handling of it. I like the fact you can get immense pleasure out of it at very low speeds. I like how easy it is to take the roof down, how easy it is to fix and to service. I love people's reaction to it as you drive around, nothing but smiles. I love the gearbox, I love the visibility, I love the fact that it puts a smile on my face all the time. It hasn't got much power, but then I don't want it to have much power, so that's not really a downside. It really is a car that you can enjoy all the time. What do I not like? Well, boot space is a little bit small, and I think the wallowy suspension is probably the only thing that I find a bit irksome, but actually in some ways it makes it even more fun in the corners. If I had one of these, I would take it for a trip around Europe. I would have a wonderful time. In fact, I might also drive all the way around the UK, do a big old tour, because this is the sort of thing you could do it in, and it would be an absolute pleasure. They spent a long time developing this car, but they absolutely nailed it, and as a used purchase today, it makes enormous sense. You can buy them for less than 10,000 quid. If you want some really good ones, you've got to pay maybe a little bit more than that, but you're getting such a car for that money. It won't let you down. It will give you smiles for miles. It's just fantastic, this thing. Gearbox is just a delight. It's an absolute joy. It's a joy, I tell you. Look at that. Oh yeah, back on the power. What an absolutely wonderful car this is. It's every bit as good as I think I remember. And today, now, it just makes sense. In a world full of enormous vehicles, ridiculous MPGs, stupid electric cars, and then you've got this brilliant miles per gallon, loads of fun. It was made 30 odd years ago, so there's no carbon footprint. Everyone should get one of these. Should we have a little bit more beans? Here we go, ready, foot down. Here it goes, building, 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 building. There it comes on cam. Oh! Oh, it's glorious. All that, and we're doing 45 miles an hour. Brilliant. Here we are, a quick guide to all the MX-5 Gen 1 special editions, and incredibly, there are 13 of them. First up is 1991's BBR Turbo, limited to 850 models and turbocharged for 150 brake horsepower. The 250 run luxury leather and wooden steering wheel limited edition, this is all show and no go. The wacky Harlequin Le Mans edition, and a livery based on the Mazda Le Mans car. Only 24 made, turbocharged, very cool, but expensive. One of my favourites, 1992's SE with wooden accoutrements and ABS. Only 300 made of the yellow California edition, this is nothing special really. This is more like it though, the 1995 Glen Eagles. They made 400 and it's a tribute to a golf course with a tartan tonneau cover. How about a poverty spec but lavishly named Monaco with an 88 brake horsepower engine for low insurance costs? Wine lovers were sure to go for the 1996 Merlot special edition with luxury leather, but 600 made, and I don't think this is favoured at all. 1997's Blue Dakar special had walnut trim, horrific grey leather, but didn't really cut the mustard. And who fancies a 500 special Harvard edition? Momo leather steering wheel, wood interior, and utterly forgettable. So no one then. 800 Monza editions were made and full of safety features, which makes this the most boring special edition ever. 1997 also saw the classic edition, just 400 made, Momo steering wheel, black leather with red stitching, but sadly it does nothing for me. And finally in 1998, the Berkeley, a vibrant coloured 400 model special edition with wood trim and a boot rack. At least, it's interesting. The history of the Mazda MX-5 is actually complex and fascinating and began way back in 1979, specifically with US Auto Week journalist Bob Hall, who, whilst touring the Mazda research facility, mentioned to managing director Kenichi Yamamoto that they should build a modern, lightweight sports car, an LWS, that was low-priced and open-bodied, just like British sports cars of the 50s and 60s. Cars that Hall was familiar with because his father owned many of them. Mazda leapt into action and did precisely nothing. But in the intervening years, Yamamoto experienced a British Triumph Spitfire on the twisty roads of the Hakone Mountains, and the experience must have stuck with him, because when in 1981 Bob Hall began working for Mazda USA, the LWS idea resurfaced with great enthusiasm and was given the code P729. And here's where it gets interesting, because to encourage healthy competition for new products, Mazda set its two main design studios against each other. Japan, headed up by Yoichi Sato, and California, headed up by Shigenori Fukuda. Both teams worked on separate designs and in fact completely different engineering layouts, with the Japanese favouring the front-engined front-wheel drive cars like the successful Honda CRX, and also mid-engined rear-wheel drive cars like the recently launched Toyota MR2. The American team focused entirely on front-engined rear-wheel drive and a convertible, and based on the ideas of 50s and 60s cars like the Triumph TRs, Frog Eye Sprite, MGs, and of course the Lotus Elan. Perhaps it was the single-minded focus that saw the American team win when the final clay models were presented in Hiroshima in September 1984. Or perhaps it was the incredible level of research and outright skill of its experienced design team. Either way, the job of creating a working prototype of the successful designs went to Mazda's Technical Research Centre based in Worthing, England. But it wasn't until 1986, nearly 2 years later, that the exterior design was finalised. And as you can see, it suddenly starts to look like the MX-5 we all know and love. But then it took 3 more years to perfect all aspects of the car and prepare it for a global launch at the Chicago Auto Show on the 9th of February 1989 with the designation NA. In 1997, Mazda announced the Gen 2 MX-5, codenamed NB, at the Tokyo Motor Show. Though it had the option of a more powerful 140 brake horsepower 1.8 litre engine, as well as the original 1.6, the charming pop-up headlights had gone in place of more insectoid fixed ones, and it shared many design cues from the Mazda RX-7. In 2006, the Gen 3 NC arrived with a 2-litre 170 brake horsepower engine, 6-speed manual, and I'm being kind here, challenging styling that included bulging wheel arches and squinty front headlights. Perhaps it was the crowded sports car market that included the likes of the Audi TT, BMW Z4, Nissan 350Z, Toyota MR2 and Porsche Boxster, but Mazda's MX-5 began to look ungainly, underpowered and a bit lost for this generation. The fourth and current generation, MX-5, codenamed ND, had a lot to do by the time it arrived in 2016, and as you can see, Mazda reverted to the more simple, satisfying design of the Gen 1 for this one. It was shorter, lighter, came with a 6-speed manual and paddle shift gearbox, 2 powertrains, and is actually a super fun little nippy terrier, just like this original car. You can also get an RF version with a Targa-like side profile and retractable hard top, which looks sensational. Thank you very much for watching this episode on the Gen 1 Mazda MX-5, a car I absolutely adore, and now, having driven it in anger, spending a bit of time with it, I really do want one. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you like what we're doing on the Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes. There'll be another episode next week.